It's really creepy doing this list how often people really do go missing.
Oh my gosh, like we could have done this 100 times.
Oh
over.
yeah, there's way too many of these cases.
Some are a little more confusing and convoluted than others, I would say for sure. And that is what we are going to be looking at today. So
let's get right into it. All right, we're starting off the list with the case of Owen Parfitt. You want to talk about baffling? This I just cannot wrap my head around. Now, this case is from a very long time ago. It was 1763 or 1768 when Englishman Owen Parfitt went missing. The exact date is not 100% clear. There are different sources that'll claim one or the other, but he was in his 60s at this point and was paralyzed from the waist down. Keep that in mind. It's going to be very important later. Owen had quite the life before settling down in Shepton Mallet. He spent his time in the military, being stationed in Africa. He was known to be a womanizer. His youth was full of crime and piracy, apparently. He was a rough kind of guy. But by the 1760s, he was living with his older sister. He'd need the help of his sister and neighbor to move him place to place, as again, he was unable to walk at this point in his life. Well, one day, they sat him out on the front porch. It was a cool June afternoon, but beautiful and sunny all the same. Owen's sister stepped back into the house and was still within earshot of him. They actually talked back and forth for a bit. She was never more than 20 feet away from him, and for 15 to 30 minutes they talked intermittently, but then Owen didn't respond to one of her questions. She asked again, no answer. She stepped out on the front porch, and Owen was nowhere to be seen. There was no way he could have walked off on his own. Even nearby neighbors hadn't seen anyone come or go. It was as if he just vanished into thin air.
Next up, we have the tragic disappearance of Brittney Wood on May 30th of 2012. 19-year-old Brittney, mother to a 2-year-old girl, disappeared after spending time with her uncle, who was at the time under investigation for sexual misconduct. 2 days after Brittney went missing, her uncle, Donnie Holland, actually took his own life, and he clearly got the easy way out because after his death, it was confirmed that he had been the leader of the largest underground sex ring in Alabama. 8 of Brittney's relatives and 3 family friends were also charged with various heinous offenses relating to these crimes. Of the charge were Brittney's mother and 2 of her aunts as well, who viciously denied having any knowledge of the crimes that took place. The police believe the most likely reason for Brittney's disappearance was that she had been a witness to her uncle's many crimes, but lack of evidence meant the case was never solved. After doing a deep dive into Brittney's social media, police learned that she had been violently violated by 3 of her male relatives just 3 days before her disappearance. Whether or not she fled in search of a better life or she was silenced for what she had seen and experienced remains a mystery, but I truly hope that anyone involved in any of the crimes I have just mentioned rots profusely in hell.
Next on the list is the case of Jennifer Kesse, who has been missing since January 23rd of 2006. The last confirmed sighting of her was leaving work around 6 p.m. that evening. She spoke with her father over the phone while driving home at about 6:15 p.m. and later talked with her boyfriend around 10. Now, it was unusual for her not to contact her boyfriend before leaving for work the next morning, but he didn't think much of it at first. But he did start getting worried when her parents phoned him saying she had failed to show up for work. Her parents rushed to her home and noticed her car was missing, but found nothing unusual inside the house. There were signs suggesting she had prepared for work that morning. There were wet towels and clothes laid out, like she'd showered in the morning before heading out. Friends, family, and the Orlando Police Department launched a search, including distributing flyers and organizing search parties by foot, horseback, boat, helicopter, car, ATV, everything. The first breakthrough in the search came when surveillance footage showed her car being parked and abandoned at an apartment complex just 1.2 miles from her home, but it wasn't Jennifer driving the car. The driver has never been identified, and Jennifer's whereabouts are still unknown.
Next up, we have the disappearance of Mayumi Arashi. On September 2nd of 1994, Arashi told her sister Yoko that she had plans to meet a friend, and this is the last time Arashi would ever be seen. The following day, when Arashi failed to return home, Yoko called the friend that Arashi had allegedly gone to see, but when the two spoke, the friend said that they hadn't had plans and they did not meet the night before. Yoko then found a note in her home that read, "I was going out with A, but I was betrayed. I am sorry." And a phone number was also written down. Yoko called the number and a man answered the phone and explained that he had in fact met with Arashi the night of her disappearance. And he added that if she was dead, he hoped that whoever caused her death would go to prison. Yoko hired a private investigator to follow A around for a little while, but nothing came of it. All the detective was able to figure out was that 6 months after Arashi's disappearance, A had been seen going into the woods carrying 2 drinks. Police investigated the area but found nothing. Years went by and eventually the family did a TV interview about their daughter's disappearance. But what's really strange is that behind the father in the interview, there's a piece of paper with a note on it that clearly reads, "Do not believe what Yoko says." Yoko, of course, being Arashi's sister. So is that a coincidence? Or do you think Yoko might have had some kind of involvement in this mysterious disappearance? Let me know down below.
Right, the case of Shelley Luty. Shelley Luty was last seen on August 23rd, 1982. The 19-year-old had just received news of her promotion to full-time waitress at the Lanark Diner in Upper Darby, Pennsylvania, and she was excited too because she was about to move into her own apartment with her daughter Jenny. Now, on the evening of her disappearance, Shelley was seen leaving work, planning to ask her stepfather for permission to borrow his Impala to visit a friend. Witnesses said they saw a male customer looking to be in his 20s grab Shelley's arm as she left the diner. She broke free, then talked with him for a couple minutes before she walked back into the diner, grabbed her coat, and left. Shelley never returned home, and neither she nor the car were ever seen again. Her stepfather reported her missing when she failed to arrive home. There was a police investigation, but no evidence of foul play ever turned up. Now, it really does seem like the mysterious man had something to do with this whole thing, but no one knew who he was, and he was never located. Shelley was also known to have epilepsy, so some have speculated that she may have had a seizure and then wandered off somewhere disoriented. The FBI even carried out an investigation, but the case just went cold, and the FBI eventually closed their investigation in October of 1984.
Next, we have the disappearance of Hannah Up, and it's super weird speaking on the disappearance of someone with the same name as you, but Hannah actually went missing on 3 separate occasions. The first time Up disappeared was August 28th of 2008. She went for a jog near her home and wasn't seen again for a full 3 weeks. When she resurfaced, she was found floating in a New York harbor. She could not recall what happened during the time she had been missing, nor how she had ended up in the water. Hannah was diagnosed with a dissociative fugue, a rare form of amnesia, and then in September 2013, she disappeared again, this time for just 2 days, and when she was found, again she claimed to have no recollection of what had happened to her during that time. Her final disappearance took place on the 14th of September in 2017, a week after Hurricane Irma had hit the Caribbean, where she had been working as a school teacher. 2 days after her final disappearance, Up's car was found abandoned at a beach containing her clothes and her keys. Her mother insisted that Hannah had been fully coherent the last time they spoke, but Up was never found and she remains missing to this day. I just think it's really weird how a woman went missing 3 times and no one really kept proper tabs on her, and they allowed it to happen again, which ultimately ended in her full disappearance. So again, this is a super strange one. If you guys have any theories, feel free to let me know.
Next up, we have the case of Tiffany Daniels. Tiffany Daniels, who was 25 at the time, went missing on August 12th of 2013. The night before her disappearance, Tiffany said goodbye to her boyfriend as he left for the University of Texas. Feeling down, she stayed in with her 54-year-old roommate, Gary Nichols, watching movies. The next day, Tiffany went to work at Pensacola State College, where she was scheduled to start painting a theater set up for an upcoming show. She asked her supervisor if she could leave early and take a few days off. Her boss said sure. She left the theater at 4:43 p.m. and briefly returned home. Gary was on the phone with his girlfriend and didn't see her come in, but he did hear her leave. But when 10 o'clock came and Tiffany hadn't come back home, Gary tried giving her a call. There was no answer. The following day, Tiffany's parents were notified of her absence, and they began reaching out to contacts in hopes of locating her, but nobody had heard from her, so they called the police. Tiffany's car was discovered abandoned in Park West near Fort Pickens on August 20th. Inside were her purse, phone, wallet, and clothing. Witnesses reported seeing a man having been driving her vehicle, and even stranger, there have been random sightings here and there of a woman who people believe to be Tiffany over the years, but her family and even authorities suspect she may have gotten caught up in human trafficking or something like that, but there's never been any significant breaks in the case. The investigation is still open though.
Next up, we've got Anthonette Cayedito, who went missing on April 6 of 1986. The young woman had been asleep in her mother's home when she heard a knock at the front door. Her other sisters woke up but thought nothing of it and went back to bed, while Anthonette went to check out who was knocking on their door at 3 a.m. This was the last time she was ever seen by her family. The next morning, when Anthonette's mother realized that she was gone, she immediately called the police, and neighbors reported seeing a brown van outside the house and a man walking towards the front door, but the van nor the man were ever found. At one point in time, the family believed it had been the uncle who knocked on the door in the middle of the night, but lack of evidence ruled him out as a viable suspect. A year after the disappearance, police received a phone call from a young woman who claimed to be Anthonette, and she said that she had been taken from her home and was currently being held in Albuquerque. All of a sudden, a man's voice could be heard saying, "Who said you could use the phone?" And then the line went dead, and police were ultimately unable to trace the call. A few years later, a young woman raised suspicion in a Nevada diner after placing a note underneath a plate that read, "Help me," but then she left the establishment before authorities could arrive. Police believe that the woman who left the note may have very well been Anthonette, but she was never found, and to this day, police are unsure where Anthonette might be, if she is the woman who left the note in the Nevada diner, or if she is even alive after all of these years. Unfortunately, Anthonette's mother did pass away in 1999, so she will never be around to see whether or not her daughter's case is solved.
All right, now this case really got under my skin when I first heard about it. This one was really creepy. Really exemplifies how people just can go missing in a matter of moments right under your nose. So on August 19th, 1992, Laurie Depies, after finishing her shift at the Fox River Mall in Appleton, Wisconsin, was walked to her vehicle by a coworker. Her boyfriend's sister and friend heard her drive up into the parking complex of his apartment. They peeked out the window and watched her park, but then minutes went by. They were just sitting there and realized that Laurie hadn't come in the apartment. Her boyfriend's sister and friend decided to go see what was up. They searched the parking lot but couldn't find Laurie. Her locked vehicle was discovered with a cup of soda placed on top, so she had gotten out of the car, but there was no sign of her. That's the last time she was seen. Foul play was suspected in her disappearance, but there were no leads, and till this day, the case is still a complete mystery.
Okay guys, that brings us to the disappearance of Boris Weisfeiler in December of 1984. The Penn State University professor booked a trip to Chile with the goal of hiking many trails in the Andes Mountains. He left his hometown in Pennsylvania and he was never seen again by his friends or family. He made it to Chile but went missing shortly after. His backpack was found on a riverbank along one of the hiking trails. Authorities in Chile released a statement saying that the man had drowned while attempting to cross the river, but no body was ever found. So it's not all that strange at first. But 16 years after Boris's disappearance, the Chilean government declassified documents that revealed that Boris might have actually been killed. It appears as though a witness had actually seen Boris being interrogated in an agricultural commune before being hit with a projectile fired from a handheld weapon at point blank range. In 2012, an investigation took place during which 8 men, including police and military officers, were charged with taking and holding Boris against his will without his consent. But in 2016, the case was closed and all 8 men were freed. To this day, there has been no answer to the question of what truly happened to Boris, and again, his body was never found. What's really weird to me is the fact that his death was alluded to in a classified and then declassified document, and we're looking at like police and military officers who might have an involvement in it as well. I smell cover up. So I wonder what he found out. That's the real mystery here. I mean, no, the real mystery is the people who are lost, but that's a big mystery as well.
Yeah, I think out of everything we talk about, aliens and cryptids and all that, like these are the scariest.
Yeah, and they're the hardest ones to do. Like, it's not, you know, it's pretty dark stuff, you guys. So as always, I hope you're all staying safe.
Yes.
I've been your host, Hannah Thompson.
I've been your host, James.
We will see you in the next video. James. Next up, we've got Anthonette Cayedito. Neighbors, she immediately called the police. I need sleep.
Yeah, same.